Here it is. All right?
On April 19th, a video called Balloon Boy: The Untold Story was uploaded to Internet Historian. It proposed that the Balloon Boy hoax of 2009 may have been a legitimate accident and no hoax at all. On May 11th, having seen the video, Richard Heaney got in touch. He sent through several pieces of evidence to support his ongoing claim of innocence. The most compelling was a video that he made in 2010. This is Richard's side of the story. Corruption in the justice system.
Before I get into the facts, I want to tell you one thing. All right? My attorney was David Lane. I took that plea because I told him I wasn't going to take. There's no way I'm going to plead guilty. No way, I didn't do it. So he said, before you make a decision, look into the case I'm now suing Larimer County for and Fort Collins Police Department. He said, look into Tim Masters. So I went home, I looked at the Tim Masters case online. It was mind-boggling. Mind-boggling, man. They framed this poor guy. Tim Masters went to prison for 10 years. He didn't do it.
Tim Masters was exonerated through DNA evidence. He later sued Larimer County and the city of Fort Collins and received a $10 million settlement. The case of who murdered Peggy Hattrick remains unsolved.
Broderick, I think his name is, Lieutenant Broderick, the head lead investigator. He perjured himself on affidavits, perjured himself on the stand, and I guess they fabricated evidence, to my understanding, and they withheld evidence. The guy goes to prison. Jolene Blair was the prosecutor. She became a judge because of that.
Judge Jolene Blair was later censured by the Supreme Court for withholding evidence favorable to the defense in the Tim Masters case.
Lieutenant Broderick, I think I'm saying his name right, he became a commander. These guys got raises. You know, they went up the ranks because of this. So when he said that to me, I get it. I get it. Fine. Anyway, that is why I had to do what I had to do. On top of the fact that they were threatening to deport my wife. So just try to imagine. I fight it. They gather up all their lies and all their evidence. And then I've got to fight from jail. I lose my kids. Mayumi's deported to Japan. What would you do?
The purpose of the balloon experiment.
Everything about this was farcical. It's like anything that they could make up, they just simply added on. I mean, it was never a weather balloon. You seem to like this title, Balloon Boy. I hate it. That's not what it was. It's insulting. What it was an experiment in the backyard to see if I could get the thing to move left or right. Fill it full of helium. 5 tanks. And if you charge the outside skin on the top, positive. You charge the bottom skin, negative. And section the panels out, you might get propulsion. I don't know. It was just a test. So look at this sample, you'll see what I'm talking about. So you fill it full of helium and it acts like a balloon. Then you take the Byfield-Brown effect of lifter technology and add that to it.
Fabrications by the prosecutor.
So after I take their plea, I'm sitting in a courtroom, okay? I can't believe what I'm hearing. And this prosecutor, Andrew Lewis, stands up there before the judge, before the courtroom, and let's not forget, the entire world was watching on TV. The entire planet Earth is watching the stupid case, and he's lying. I want to show you this. They gave me a CD. See that CD? That's the logo. And on here are photographs, okay? The first photograph was taken on October 15th, 2009. Okay, so after the flying saucer landed, photograph number PA 150342. If you zoom in on it, you can clearly see the high voltage PC board from the stun gun and the battery connector. All right, now let's zoom in on the next photo. PA 150330. It clearly shows 3 9-volt batteries. 3 of them.
He said that there was 3 9-volt batteries hooked up to a stun gun, and it would produce volts, therefore no one should touch it. What they do find inside is 2 1.5-volt batteries hooked up to an egg timer. No indication that there is a stun gun in there.
He's claiming 2 1.5 volt. What is this?
Size of the balloon.
We then took measurements of the balloon, which measured 16 feet across and 6 feet tall, and the compartment below was 2 feet. In this next photograph, PA 150362, you see they pulled the measurement from the outside to the center pin at 10 feet. You double that, it's 20 feet wide, just like I said. So in order for them to somehow prove that I somehow had knowledge that it wasn't going to lift up that much weight, they lied and they said they pulled new measurements and it's 16 feet wide. So they get this Professor Jones from CSU to come in and back it up and validate that a 16-foot wide flying saucer is not going to pick that up.
Mr. Haney was asked during this incident what the capacity, the lifting capacity of this balloon was, and Mr. Haney provided a lifting capacity for 72 pounds. The Sheriff's Department had contacted a professor at CSU to determine whether, based on the capacity he had and the amount of helium he had, whether or not it would be possible to lift up Falcon Haney, and whether it's possible that he was in this balloon.
Basically, he stated the craft would probably not have been capable of sustaining flight with Falcon aboard. However, he did add, based on the description of the craft provided by Richard Haney, originally, those calculations, when used, would have been able to sustain flight. Look, 10 foot 2 inches. You see that? 10 foot 2 inches.
Is it focused?
Is it focused? Get back. Okay, now look at mommy. She's right in the center. I mean, how could you miscalculate this at 16 feet? They know that they were lying, so they tried to get Mayumi to sign something while I was incarcerated. Had she signed it, then we would have been screwed.
The call to 911.
So perhaps one of the biggest lies of all that perpetrated more media frenzy was the fact that this investigator, Bob Heffernan, lied on his affidavit in order to get a search warrant and then later an arrest warrant. And the sheriff was in the next room and everybody heard me say, clearly heard me say, the order in which the phone calls were made. Then, about an hour later, they run down the hall, whatever they had to do, to fill out this affidavit. And then they got a judge to sign it based on that lie.
But the first call was to the FAA.
Yes.
And my understanding is they tell you to call 911.
Yeah, and I found it to be shocking because I would have called. I actually thought to call 911. I'm going, oh, you know, they don't have any way to fly up to, so that's why I thought of the FAA. They tell me to call 911, so I called 911. I shouted to my wife. I said, I don't care who you get somebody with a helicopter down. Okay. Her idea was to call the news helicopters because of the traffic stuff. So she's in another room doing whatever she's doing.
So you call 911.
Yes.
Okay. And your wife calls for helicopters
Yeah.
and the news people?
Yeah, well, I think she called a couple of people, some kind of helicopter rental service maybe or something like that. I'm not sure what she did. I'll have to get the details from her. They hung up on her. Okay. I get irritated. I said, I know they're probably going to make fun of her accent or something. People do it all the time. And or she wasn't clear on the phone. Or they thought it was a prank. Okay? And I'm thinking, oh my God, she got somebody with a helicopter. Let's call somebody, let's call, I had to redial, call out. I said, who is this? And they said, 9 News. Richard called the Federal Aviation, FAA, Channel 9 News Denver, then Emergency Dispatch, and reported that Falcon was missing and presumed to be in the experimental flying saucer that was now adrift. After they interrogated me, about an hour later, they run down the hall, fill out an affidavit, which is a complete utter lie. An hour later, to get a search warrant for my house. So they influenced the public official to sign a search warrant, and they lied on the affidavit. Now this Jim Broderick, he's up for 8 counts of perjury, and several of those, he perjured himself on an affidavit. You know, these guys, man, this is what they do in Fort Collins. This is what the Fort Collins cops do. To prove that I made the phone calls in the order I made them, I called the FAA. They told me to call 911. I did. And you can hear my voice in the background. If you crank it up, hear my voice in the background. And I said, as soon as the guy picks the phone up, I said, do you guys have a fucking helicopter? You can hear it in the background. Listen to it.
Hold on a second for me, okay? I'm going to send you to Larimer County. Stay on the phone. I don't know the name.
Call news media first, or did they actually call dispatch?
My understanding is, and I'm afraid I haven't seen a timeline on all this, so I'll tell you what I believe to be the case today. Our understanding is that his first call was to the FAA, and that the second call was made to 9 News with the belief that they had a helicopter that might be able to assist, and that sometime afterwards they called 911.
So Larimer County Sheriff's Department is solely responsible for causing the media frenzy.
The interrogation of Richard Heaney.
It's painful because they lied to me to get me to go down to the station. I get down there and they basically try to ambush me with these questions, the interrogation. They didn't say they were going to interrogate me.
I think Bob's got a strategy to maybe help you get these assholes off your back.
Great.
That's the idea.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
And then they set up at the same time, to go ambush my wife at the house. She wasn't read her rights, by the way. So then they asked me to take a polygraph. Now you got to know something. From that morning of when the flying saucer event happened to the time I'm down here at the station, it was 52 hours with no sleep. I've got press hanging outside my window. They're beating down my door. The phone's ringing off the hook. I can't sleep. I was completely out of my mind. So then I tested my blood sugar level at the station, and it was 473.
That's not good.
What is it?
473.
Okay, what does that mean? You need a snack or something?
I'm supposed to be at 100.
Okay, so how do you get it down? Do I
gotta take
get
a shot.
soda,
I'll
or
just
you take a shot?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you have high blood sugar, you're extremely tired, even somewhat lethargic. On top of the fact that I didn't have the sleep, I'm out of my mind. They asked me to go take a polygraph. So I wanted to get the hell out of the station. So I said, fine, eventually. I didn't know what to do, quite frankly, so I tried to call some attorneys. It was Saturday. I'm sure they set that up, so I couldn't call any attorneys. So I go into their polygraph room, and I'm trying to take their friggin' polygraph. Now, in most states, I'm going to read you this. In most states, police may not use overbearing measures to coerce an involuntary confession. Examples of improper or illegal interrogation tactics may include continuing to question you even after you ask for a lawyer, depriving you of food, water, or sleep, beating you or threatening harm or greater punishment, and or making false promises of leniency in exchange for a confession. All right, so here's the polygraph examiner, Kevin Mall, doing the interrogation.
When we get through the questions, we'll take a break and walk around a little bit, kind of wake up a little bit, and use the restroom and some other things, because I can see you're struggling a little bit, but we'll take a break and then we're going to review the questions again.
Okay. I gotta get some circulation. Okay. I am just not here. Okay.
Okay, Richard, you are going to have to focus and concentrate and stay awake. Okay. And it most certainly will help if forcing keeping your eyes open. Okay. So So we'll go ahead and try one more time. Richard, if this is not able to stay alert or not.
So Kevin Mall wrote in his affidavit dated 10/26/2009, Mr. Heaney did not make any admissions. However, he began to reiterate that he again had symptoms of problems with his blood sugar level, and his sleepiness returned. This, however, was an obvious attempt to derail the investigation process and was not a legitimate medical concern. I mean, think about the audacity of this guy saying it was of no medical concern. When you have high blood sugar, the blood circulating through your body, it gets thick like syrup. I hadn't slept for 52 hours when I first got there. Hours are rolling by. I mean, I can't even stay awake. To derail it? I was out of my mind. Plus all the stress. You got the press out in front of the house. Try to imagine that. They're making noise. I mean, they got machines, and they got people banging on my door night and day, lights shining in my windows. I'm trying to derail the investigation? They will stop at nothing to prosecute somebody. It's like a conveyor belt of convictions. And they all get promoted based on that.
Mayumi's confession.
When I communicate to Mayumi, I've got to ask her 3 to 5 times the same question, most times throughout the day, just to get the right answer out of her. And so, yeah, I was a bit upset that they were even asking her questions, but imagine, she didn't have a Japanese interpreter.
Do you understand what I mean by hoax? Okay.
Back then I was thinking hoax means exhibition, and the word was in my life. I never had that word. So and later on I look up a dictionary and then look up the word, and oh my God, that's honestly I thought.
Not only that, Mayumi's English was so bad that Wife Swap had to subtitle her in 2 different episodes.
Climb up on trees. They act like monkeys. Kids are not really enjoying having fun.
So they basically ambushed Mayumi, and they asked her to get in a police car and leave her kids behind. We never leave our kids behind any place. And there were some cops there. Who knows what questions they were asking my kids. They towed my wife off down to the police station to ask her these questions. And so she separated from the kids.
I'm worried about my kids.
You're worried about the kids?
It's not because of myself. I'm so worried. Selfishness. I really wish one of us can stay with the kids.
Okay.
But it may not happen.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this much, okay? I have no intention of separating you from your children right now. Okay? That's not my goal here. My goal here, though, is to get you to tell the truth, which it sounds like you're doing. Okay? And obviously there are going to be consequences, but I don't decide what those consequences are. But I want to be able to go to the people who make those decisions. As long as you're telling me everything, you know, I'm going to throw that in that mix.
And they didn't even read her rights. They didn't tell her that this was an investigation. And if they did, she would know the difference anyway. She doesn't watch TV. She doesn't understand that she has to be read her rights. Doesn't understand that.
And you knew that he was somewhere in the house, but you didn't know he was up in the attic?
I then asked her, you knew he, referring to Falcon, was hiding somewhere in the home, right? Mayumi responded, yes.
And you knew that he was somewhere in the house, but you didn't know he was up in the attic? So who told Falcon? Where was Falcon? Was Falcon in the attic?
Which I really didn't know.
Okay, well, where was he?
It seems he was in the attic.
You assumed he was in the attic?
No, I didn't. He was, but I didn't know about it.
Okay.
Where he was.
I specifically asked her if her son Falcon was really in the attic the entire time. She stated she thought he was, but wasn't sure.
Did you guys build this for the purpose of this hoax? Is that the whole purpose of building it?
Honestly, this experiment itself is not only for this, to build, I don't know which automation, 3D, LAB, our invention.
Right.
In the future, we want to bring it up to that level.
Okay, so you do want to have this be a legitimate experiment and
Yes.
things like that.
I then turned my attention to asking her whether they built this craft specifically for the purpose of this hoax, to which she stated, he quotes her, "The experiment for this type of craft is real in the future, but this craft was specifically built for the hoax." He quotes her. He quotes her. Listen to it. She never said that. That's an all-out lie. This was fed to the media. This was told to the media that she somehow admitted this. Look, this is from Kilmer Lane Newman LLP, okay? My attorney put this out there. All right, it says here, upon reviewing the evidence, arguably, Mayumi could have possibly ended up being deported, and Richard could have proceeded to trial and had a good chance at an acquittal. This, however, would have put the family at grave risk of seeing a loving, caring, compassionate wife and mother ripped from the family and deported. This was not an acceptable risk. Thus, these pleas. So what had happened was our attorneys were talking to the prosecutor's attorneys. I never heard a word of what was going on, but our attorneys told us that this was a huge deal.
Interrogating the Heaney kids.
Mayumi's attorney told the Larimer County Sheriff's Department in a letter that they will not interrogate our children, because under the law they cannot do that unless the parents say that they can. So the way they get around this is they make a false claim to DHS that our kids are somehow maybe abused. Then they send a sheriff down to write down the questions or ask the questions to the person at DHS. Then they walk out of a room, enter the room where the child is, and ask them interrogating questions. How is that even legal? How can they do that? So, in this next clip, you'll see it.
Falcon, tell me about the balloon being for a TV show.
We didn't. We never wanted it to be a TV show.
Oh. Well, why was there a balloon?
We made it so we could hover over traffic.
To hover over traffic.
Listen closely, and you're going to hear the deputy giving the questions to the woman interrogating.
Ask him have him draw the doors to the garage and ask him which door he came in the house.
Okay. Okay. Well, we were looking at this. I'm wondering, where's the door? Where's the door to the garage?
Oh, it's down here. I just can't write it.
Did someone help you get into the attic?
No.
Huh.
I just looked everywhere to find a hiding place. I looked up. I found the attic, and I went up there.
How come you were looking everywhere to find a hiding place?
Because I'm scared when people yell at me. My dad yelled at me for playing no fine fuzzer.
Falcon, I thought that you said that you didn't like your dad yelling at you. That's why you went to the attic.
Yeah, he did yell at me.
What did he say when he yelled?
He didn't actually yell. It was just like kind of yelling like, get out, get out, get out, get out.
Hey, Falcon, get the hell out of there. Falcon, get out now. Come here.
Okay, get out.
I mean it. Falcon, come here now. What the hell are you doing? Get out of there now. Damn it. All right, guys, come on, man. You guys gotta take this serious, all right?
Like that. He didn't yell. He was doing that stuff.
What did he mean by get out, get out, get out?
On the flying saucer.
Of the flying saucer.
I was playing in the flying saucer.
Richard Heaney and Mayumi Heaney to cooperate in the investigation of possible child neglect or abuse involving the above-named children by producing the children for an interview with Larimer County Human Department of Services. They didn't ask them questions about safety. The entire questioning, 2.5 hours per kid, 7.5 hours, we were away from our kids. They interrogated the kids about the incident. It had nothing to do with it.
I'm tired. I'm gonna go back down.
You know what? I have a few more questions for you, okay?
So here's the conclusion of the DHS. I'm going to read this to you. According to the Department of Human Services caseworker, Jessica Link, the department is not involved in this matter. They have no recommendation and their assessment is closed. So they found nothing. My kid told the truth. They could have walked away from it all right then and there. No, they kept pressing. They kept coming after us. They're ruthless.
The vindictive sheriff's department.
After Falcon made his presence known, Detective Heffernan looked at me and he said, "What are you going to do about the press?" Well, all this time we were there, we never even watched the TV. We had no clue what was out of our front door. So he said, "Yeah, you got a bunch of press out there, you're going to have to say something." I said, "I'm not going to say anything to anybody. Are you out of your mind? We just found our kid." He said, "Well, look at it this way, Richard. If you don't say something, they're going to be out there for the next 2 weeks hounding you." So I had to think about it for a bit, and he was kind of right, because how am I going to get to and from work? I can't bring press to my jobs. Well, then I told him, I said, "Okay, fine, but would you come out with me to Detective, or this investigator Heffernan?" He said, "No, I can't, but the sheriff is on his way over. He wants to stand out there with you." That's what he said verbatim. I had to sit there and wait until the sheriff showed up. The sheriff shows up. He's out there, stands out there next to me during this press conference. He's the one that wanted the media attention. See through it. See it for what it really is. After I do my time, they finally allow me to go get the flying saucer, okay? And we're worried that there's going to be media there. We go through the police, we go through the sheriff's office doors, and there's a bunch of cops there, and one of them is snapping off photographs in the lobby. I couldn't believe it. So we asked, and we said, "Is this going to go out to the media?" You know? They said, "No, this is just for our records." Well, lo and behold, the next day, the woman snapping pictures writes a sarcastic article and posts it up on the blog, and the media picks it up. I'm quite sure the Heanies have no idea how they turn my life, indeed the lives of many of us, upside down with their antics. Heck, they don't even know who I am. When Richard and Mayumi Heaney picked up their balloon for evidence, I had my camera. She's bragging about it. He's now sporting a beard and a mustache. She is not. They didn't like my taking photos, and actually I said I needed their permission to do so. They added they didn't want their pictures in the papers or on TV. So I took only about 50. So this woman writes her nasty little blurb about us, and then there it is. Photograph, the Colorado one, picked it up and publicized it. And of course Sheriff Alderton was involved as well. 10/22/09, he calls this article Up and Away, the Bullseye, or at least it was taken off the site then. I sometimes have trouble figuring out what to write about, but not this week. Some of you may have heard about a little incident we had involving a spaceship balloon, a big balloon. This incident has given me ample fodder. So he's bragging. The sheriff's bragging. They're all in it together. Who wants the press?
Final thoughts.
They will stop at nothing to get a conviction, especially if the media is involved. Tim Masters' case was high profile in that it wasn't just Colorado. This was globally. These guys went home that evening and thought, "Oh my God, this is a high profile case. This could accelerate our career. We got to find something. We got to assemble something." It took them 3 weeks to find a charge. There was no charge. 3 weeks of digging around, trying to find a suitable charge for this. Think about that, man. So they had no evidence. That means they had to go fabricate the evidence. And this is why I had to take the plea deal, because in Tim Masters' case, they fabricated stuff. When I saw that they started fabricating evidence against me, there's no way these guys are going to let me go. So if I fight it, I know damn well I'm going down the road, 4 to 6 years. We built that as a family project. And, all shit hit the fan, obviously. Falcon was in and out of that thing 4 times throughout the day. I got video to prove it. Those assholes lied for their own political gain at the expense of the Heaney family. I've lost complete respect for our judicial system and cops alike. And after looking at this, if you don't know that I'm telling the truth, I don't know what to do, man.